Boost Your Brain, Everyday Habits for Lifelong Health. Thank you, Pam Edgar, for presenting on this very important topic. And who is Pam Edgar, who will be discussing with you all today? She is the Director of Education at CaringKind, where she leads the educational offerings like the one today for families, along with professional development opportunities. Pam is a licensed creative arts therapist with a master's degree in drama therapy from NYU. She has over 15 years of experience with older adults and families in nursing homes, daycare programs, nonprofits, and telehealth organizations. Pam is also a trained end-of-life doula and creates pottery in her spare time. So you're in good hands this afternoon, and I'm going to bring Pam up. And I thank you guys all again for being here.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. Appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. So glad you're here this afternoon on this chilly Tuesday. Happy New Year to you. Um, Excited to talk about brain health today. It's such an important topic, and a great way to start the new year by thinking about things that can be done to keep our brains healthy and well. So, very excited to be here today. So, why do we talk about brain health? Just starting with our why. One of the reasons is we really want to reduce fear and stigma. We view cognitive well-being as a part of overall health rather than associating it solely with decline or disease. So this reframing helps normalize discussions about memory, aging, mental function, making it easier to talk about dementia without shame or fear. And we know, even though there are over 7 million people in the United States who are impacted by Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, there's still a lot of stigma associated with Alzheimer's disease. So, as we talk about lifestyle choices to optimize brain health, we want to be clear that dementia is nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. No one who gets a diagnosis is at fault, right? It's really important that, while we are going to talk about some lifestyle factors, we know that there are plenty of factors that are not within someone's control. And there are many reasons why all kinds of people get dementia. So we also know that it's possible to have a good quality of life with dementia, and that's one of our tenets here at CaringKind is connect to living, to live well, to support well-being, and brain health is a great way of supporting well-being. So it also allows us to promote well-being for everyone. The tips we'll talk about today can be beneficial for everybody, including those with a diagnosis. And research shows that these modifiable lifestyle factors can promote well-being and slow down cognitive decline. Also, talking about brain health encourages early awareness and diagnosis. When brain health is discussed openly, individuals and families are more likely to recognize early signs of cognitive change and seek medical advice. And this reduces the delay in diagnosis, often caused by stigma and fear, allowing for earlier intervention, planning, and support. And there are recent advancements in testing and treatment, including genetic testing that can determine if someone has an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease, FDA approved blood tests that show traces of the amyloid plaques, and those are used for showing or confirming signs of cognitive decline and confirming an Alzheimer's diagnosis. There are also treatments that target amyloid plaques and clear amyloid plaques that slow down symptoms. So it's really important to have, early intervention. The earlier you get diagnosed, the more options and possibilities people have. We also want to dispel myths and misconceptions. Public education about brain health helps correct false beliefs, such as the idea that dementia is inevitable or that it is untreatable. While there is not a cure for Alzheimer's disease or other dementias, there are treatments on the market that are showing promise and more research is being done. So we also want to clear up misconceptions that certain supplements or superfoods can prevent Alzheimer's disease and dementia. At this moment in time, science does not support those claims. But research that we're going to talk about today does show that up to 40% of dementia cases may be preventable or delayed through lifestyle changes like exercise, diet, and social engagement. So, empowering individuals and communities, brain health campaigns empower people to take control of their cognitive well-being and advocate for supportive environments. And this can empower communities to continue to break stigma, create supports for people living with dementia and their caregivers. So this is many of the reasons why we're talking about brain health today. And we're glad you're here with us. So, our agenda, we're going to start with a bit about the brain, understanding how the brain works. And we're going to ground our conversation today in science and research. And then we're going to be talking about tips for brain health, including, you can see a lot of them here: managing health, eating well, get moving, stay connected, challenge yourself, don't smoke, get sleep, and manage stress. So we'll go through each one of those and some ideas in depth. In the chat, Rochelle is going to include, if she hasn't already, a worksheet that you can use if you wish. As we go through today, it allows you to kind of assess yourself. What areas are your strengths? What of these areas do you want to work on? And why is that important to you? Because we know that when people identify their why they want to make changes, the changes are more likely to happen. So we want to encourage you, if there are some changes that you want to make as a result of this workshop today, we want to give you ideas and thoughts and ways to get started. And, hopefully you'll also identify some areas where you're really strong, where you're doing well, and we want to celebrate that as well. So, anchoring in the brain, and thinking about brain health, we know that the brain is the control center of the body. Billions of nerve cells called neurons transmit information through electrical and chemical signals. And these signals form memories, thoughts, feelings, and govern bodily functions. We know that genetics is a huge part of our brain, of how it works, of its makeup. And as I said before, genetic testing for Alzheimer's disease is increasingly available through both clinical settings. These tests can help assess individuals' risks by identifying genetic markers such as the APOE4 allele, which is associated with a higher likelihood of developing the disease. It's not a guarantee if you have the APOE allele that you will develop Alzheimer's, but there are signs, research shows that the risks are greater. So, understanding some of what science shows us. So this slide shows findings from the 2024 Lancet Commission on Dementia, which is a group of researchers convened by the Lancet Medical Journal to review the best available evidence on dementia and produce recommendations on how to manage or delay development and promote brain health. So you can see some of the actions here, and Lancet really promotes a a lifelong dedication to a healthier brain. So things like protecting your head, especially for children at young ages, wearing helmets, protecting the head is really important. But other actions like managing underlying conditions, including heart disease, blood pressure, and high cholesterol, along with addressing vision and hearing loss, can improve overall health and reduce the risks of Alzheimer's disease. Other beneficial lifestyle modifications can be helpful, including avoiding smoking, maintaining a healthy diet, regular exercise, avoiding social isolation by staying connected to others, and engaging in activities that challenge your brain in different ways. Right. And so this report was also backed by the finger model risk reduction study. This is the world's first randomized trial to demonstrate that multimodal lifestyle interventions can help prevent cognitive decline and dementia. And these were first published in the Lancet Medical Journal in 2015. So since then, research teams all over the world have built further on the finger study and are adapting and testing the finger model in different settings and with different focus. So you can see the fingers, these five modifiable risk factors: healthy food, physical activities, mental stimulation, social activities, and checking cardiovascular values. Right. And so the finger study um, was the first one, and it was developed into a US pointer study. And this was through the Alzheimer's Association, a major clinical trial focused on protecting brain health through those same five lifestyle interventions. So this included over 2,000 participants aged 60 to 79 with sedentary lifestyles, suboptimal diet, and risk criteria for cognitive decline. And these participants were broken into two different groups. One group followed a very structured lifestyle programs, and the other was more self-guided. But both of the groups involved regular meetings, physical activity, health monitoring, nutrition, cognitive exercise, and brain games. So you can see these four areas here that we're really focused on. Again, this physical exercise, 30 to 35 minutes of moderate to intense aerobic activity at least 4 times a week, plus strength and flexibility exercises twice a week. And that's what the controlled group focused on. Health monitoring, so regular check-ins on blood pressure, weight, and lab results. Nutrition, which was adherence to the MIND diet, and we're going to talk about that more in a little bit, which emphasizes the dark leafy greens, berries, nuts, whole grains, and cognitive exercise. And so both intervention groups, both the highly structured and the more self-guided, showed cognitive benefits, but the structured lifestyle programs significantly improved cognition in older adults at risk of cognitive decline, outperforming the self-guided approaches over a 2-year period. Gains consistently across sex, ethnicity, genetic risk, and heart health status. And the structured program included a combination, again, of the exercise, strength training, brain training, and adherence to the MIND diet, and regular health monitoring. And it also showed that diverse populations benefited as well, including communities often underrepresented in dementia research, showing that brain health strategies can be effective and accessible for all. And this study is continuing with a 4-year extension as well. And so sharing a little bit of kind of preliminary research that CaringKind has done in the Blue Zones Challenge. So the Blue Zones by Dan Buettner is a practical research-based guide designed to help you live a longer, healthier, and more fulfilling life by adapting the habits of the world's longest lived people. And the blue zones are 5 regions around the world where people live significantly longer and healthier lives. Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Okinawa, Japan, Loma Linda, California, and Ikaria, Greece are some of the blue zones. Um, and so in the 30-day challenge, I focused on building habits, including, and this challenge was in the Bronx. So 100 people, about 100 people participated. It was a 30-day challenge focused on building habits, including movement, nutrition, social connection. And the Bronx was chosen because we know it has one of the highest rates of Alzheimer's disease in the country. So the participants reported improved mood and a greater sense of community. So these kinds of lifestyle interventions are showing promise both in research and in self-report. So we'll move into some of these tips more in depth, but I'm going to stop for a moment just to see if there are any questions. Rochelle, do we have any questions in the chat?
Yes, and we have one question from someone who I don't have their name, but it's Zoom user. And where can I get tested for genetic markers for dementia?
Hmm, that's something that you can talk with your doctor about. You can, or a neurologist, and they can tell you, it's good to do it through a doctor because they can tell you some of the pros and cons and give you some counseling in thinking about, the pros and cons of genetic testing and thinking if that's right for you. So we recommend talking to your doctor about that.
Thank you. And
Great question.
yes. And it doesn't look like we have any others in the chat, but you guys are welcome to ask in the chat and we'll carry along.
Great. All right. So tips for brain health, right? And so we talked about some of the research, and now we're going to go into these 8 areas that have been discussed. So managing health, eating well, getting moving, staying connected, challenging yourself, challenging your brain, not smoking, getting sleep, and managing stress. So starting here with managing health. So the studies have shown that maintaining regular doctor visits, health checkups, including cognitive screenings, are really important for brain health. And what's good for the body is good for the brain and vice versa. So managing cardiovascular uh, disease, health conditions. We know that diabetes accelerates neurodegeneration, increases the risk of both Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. Hypertension is now considered one of the greatest cardiovascular risk factors for dementia. It can damage blood vessels in the brain, leading to reduced blood flow and increased risk of vascular dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And diabetes, we know that high blood sugar levels can damage blood vessels and nerves, including those in the brain. Insulin resistance affects how the brain processes glucose, which is essential for cognitive functioning. And we know that obesity, especially abdominal obesity, is linked to a higher risk of dementia, independent of other factors, and it contributes to chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and hormonal imbalances that affect brain health. So maintaining and managing any underlying conditions is really important for a healthy brain and beneficial for your brain and your body. Also, as we discussed in the Lancet study, they recognize that hearing and vision loss are can be risk factors for dementia. And some of the reasons for this is that sensory input fuels memory formation, right? So our brains rely on sensory information, especially from what we see and hear, to form and retrieve memories. So impaired hearing or vision reduces the quality and quantity of this input, making it harder for the brain to encode new memories and maintain cognitive sharpness. And reduced sensory input reduces brain stimulation. So when hearing or vision declines, the brain receives less stimulation, and this can lead to cognitive deterioration over time. For example, untreated hearing loss has been linked to increased brain atrophy and reduced activity in areas responsible for processing sound and language. So sometimes dementia related, if someone has hearing loss and has dementia, sometimes one of their symptoms is the aphasia, difficulty finding words or understanding words. Social isolation and depression can also happen with hearing and vision loss. People may avoid conversations in social settings due to difficulty communicating, or due to embarrassment over not being able to hear. And this can lead to loneliness and depression, both of which negatively impact the brain. So the research just again highlights that mild hearing loss can double the risk of dementia, and severe hearing loss increases the risk by 5 times. So hearing loss is considered one of the largest modifiable risk factors for dementia in midlife. And vision loss is associated with up to a twofold increase in dementia risk. And cataract surgery has been shown to reduce dementia risk as well by up to 30%. So maintaining hearing and vision, using hearing aids or glasses when needed, are very important to keep that brain stimulation and keep that neuroplasticity in the brain. So start today, and you're going to see after every section, we have this start today slide with some ideas. The first side, you see some reflections, right? And again, that idea of starting with your why. How can managing my health benefit me? Why might this be important or beneficial for me? And your why is very individual for you. So, for some people, it may be, I love, being outside and bike riding and physical activity, and I want to do that for as long as possible. For others, the motivation might be, I want to be around for my children and grandchildren, to care for them, or whatever your why is. It's important to understand that that can help motivate you, because sometimes it's hard to do these things. These aren't all easy things to do, and making changes can be really difficult. So we want to encourage you to reflect and think about and connect to your why. What questions do I have for my doctors? When was my last physical exam, and how can I improve my health? So those are some things to reflect on, and then actions you can take, right? Schedule appointments with doctors or specialists. Ask doctors about ways to manage health conditions. Ask for baseline cognitive tests. A lot of times people are nervous about doing that, but it can be really helpful to start getting those baseline tests early. Use corrective sensory devices when needed, especially with vision and hearing. So next, eat well. Eating a healthy diet may reduce risk of many diseases, including Alzheimer's and related dementias. And science says that eating a balanced diet, like the Mediterranean and Mind diets, can lower the risk of Alzheimer's and slow cognitive decline. And this is because persistent inflammation disrupts communication between the brain cells, impairing memory, focus, and decision making. And over time, this contributes to neurodegeneration, where brain cells die and malfunction. And so, antioxidants, like those found in leafy greens and berries, play a critical role in supporting brain health by protecting brain cells from damage caused by oxidative stress. So, eating a healthy diet can reduce the inflammation and increase antioxidants. And some of the diets that are recommended the most are the Mind and Mediterranean diets. And these are very similar, with the Mind diet emphasizing a little bit more the berries and leafy greens. But you can see in this slide things to eat more: leafy greens, vegetables, berries, nuts, whole grains, lean poultry, fish, beans, olive oil, right? All of these are a part of the Mind and Mediterranean diet. And these can help influence biological mechanisms such as inflammation, oxidative stress, and beta amyloid buildup, factors linked to Alzheimer's, while also affecting related conditions like diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. Right, and so you can see here some foods to eat less or reduce, including red meat, butter, cheese, sweets, added sugars, fast food, fried foods, processed foods, and sodas. And we know that no single food, vitamin, or supplement has been proven to prevent Alzheimer's disease, but nutrient-rich foods, like the ones on the left side, the eat more side, and balanced diets, show promise in supporting brain health. So again, a reflection slide. How can eating healthy benefit me? Um, in what ways are you eating healthy? How can you cook healthier, cook differently to make meals healthier? Sometimes small changes can make a big difference. I know, what some people have, switched from white rice to brown rice, right? Or a mix of rice and vegetables as a base, right? What healthy foods can you add? What's one small step to take? And some actions, replacing sugary drinks with water or tea. I'm a big tea drinker, and then I found that there are all kinds of flavored teas out there now, lots of different kinds of combinations, raspberry zinger and tangerine and blueberry basil and all kinds of things that still allow me to have a little bit of flavor without the sugars. So I found that helpful for me. Um, Use olive oil instead of butter or margarine when you can. Add some vegetables to your diet, and fresh vegetables are great, but frozen vegetables are also wonderful. We know that there are, in different areas, fresh produce is more accessible than others. So, we understand that there's societal inequities in access to food as well. Um, so, thinking about what you're able to access is really important. But, having berries, fresh berries, frozen berries, swapping those for sugary desserts can be helpful as well. So next on our list here is to get moving. Physical activity and exercise improve brain health. And we referred to the blue zones earlier. One of the things that they found in the blue zones were that people in those areas often, those areas were very hilly, or had, the houses had a lot of steps, or people sat on the floor and were getting up and down off the floor all day long. So this idea of natural movement throughout the day, it's important and great to exercise, but also just increasing natural movement throughout the day can be very beneficial for brain health. So regular exercise reduces the risk of diabetes and heart disease. It increases the blood flow to the brain. It improves connection between brain cells and improving balance and reducing fall risk. And there are very simple things, even just standing up and down from a steady chair, that can help with balance, balancing on one foot, either while holding a chair if you need a little bit of steadying, or just, practicing your balance. That can be very, very helpful and reduce fall risk as well. And some exercise tips. Aerobic activity, so a goal of about 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity activity, or 75 minutes of more vigorous activity. And again, talk to your doctor about starting an exercise regimen. You know, different movements, different cardiovascular exercises are, better for different people. So you should do something that's right for you. But walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, pickleball, tennis, all of these are examples of aerobic activities. And sometimes chair exercises can be wonderful too. Strength training, so trying to bring in some strength training 2 days a week. That can be resistance bands, light dumbbells, sit to stand exercises, leg curls or bicep curls. And if you don't have weights in the house, bottles of water, cans of soup, those kinds of things, those functional exercises. If you're carrying groceries, you're doing some of that weight work, naturally during the day. So balance exercises, we see that here, people balancing on one foot. Tai Chi, heel to toe walking, standing from a seated position. And flexibility or stretching can be great. Seated hamstring stretches, calf stretches, chair yoga. Um, all of those are really wonderful to keep the body moving. So again, our start today slide, and reflecting on how physical activity benefits you. How can you build more activity in your day? I know some people, some of my friends have started, when you're watching TV on the commercial, get up and do 10 squats or 10, modified jumping jacks or shoulder rolls, right? Even when you're watching TV or doing other things, you can build in some of this natural movement. So even these small things can make a big difference. What activities do you want to try? Right? Sometimes, when you ask doctors or ask exercise professionals, what's the best exercise for me to do? They'll say the one that you'll do, the one that you like, right? It's important for you to find something that you enjoy. I love to dance, so I try to build that into my day as much as possible. Right. So what are what small steps you can take? And sometimes I'll have like a 5-minute dance break where I'll just put on a song, dance and get a little bit of movement, get my blood flowing, get my heart rate up a little bit. And often that can put me in a better mood for the rest of the day. So talk to your doctor about what activities are best for you. Again, it's important to do things that are good and healthy for your body. Adding short walks or exercise bursts throughout the day, asking a friend to join you, and that brings in that social connection as well. And trying something fun, try something new if you're interested in that. Knowing what you enjoy. And that brings us to our next one of staying connected. So regular social connections with others can have significant health benefits. Right. So social interactions stimulate cognitive function. Social interactions activate multiple brain regions, including those responsible for memory, decision making, and emotional regulation, like the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, and the amygdala. And engaging in conversations and relationships helps maintain and strengthen neural pathways, boosting attention, memory, and problem solving skills. Social connection builds cognitive reserve and resilience. Meaningful social engagement contributes to cognitive reserve, which helps the brain compensate for age-related changes or damage. Strong social ties are linked to a lower risk of dementia and slower cognitive decline. And it also buffers against stress and loneliness. So, social support reduces levels of cortisol, a stress hormone, protecting the brain from its harmful effects. Loneliness and isolation are associated with increased inflammation, oxidative stress, and higher risks of depression and Alzheimer's disease. And some reports have shown that chronic loneliness and isolation can have similar health effects as smoking 14 cigarettes a day, right? So they know that loneliness really does impact people. Now, if you are a caregiver, we know that it is very difficult sometimes to connect with others. You have so much on your plate, so many things to do, that it can be very isolating. So that's why at CaringKind, we have caregiver support programs. We have them virtually and in person, but virtual ways, as Rochelle said, to engagement programs, connect to cafes, different opportunities for people to connect, whether in person or on Zoom. Over the virtually is great too. Whatever you can do, calling a friend, those kinds of things are so important. And again, you see those things here. Joining a social club or faith community is a great way to get those kinds of interactions, meals with friends and family, learning or volunteering with others, taking an online course in an area of interest or volunteering, maintaining those virtual connections, right? It is cold. There is a lot of snow on the ground. It may be very difficult. I did not want to leave the house today. It might be very difficult in the winter to get out, but finding virtual programs, virtual groups, connecting with people in that way can be incredibly beneficial. So again, how can social connections benefit me? What are ways to get involved in your community? And how do you like to connect? What are your personal preferences? What clubs or groups would interest you? And then schedule a regular call or video chat with distant others. Invite a friend or family for a meal or a favorite activity. Participate in a community event or join a class or a social group are all great ways to continue those connections. And as we said, we have wonderful support groups, including Partnering Together programs here at CaringKind to help people connect in meaningful ways. So next we have challenge yourself, engaging in cognitive challenges. Cognitively challenging activities can have short-term and long-term benefits. Staying hydrated is also great for your brain and also good for my throat as it's getting caught a little bit. So excuse me for that. Um, So science says keeping your mind active forms connections among brain cells. So why brain challenges matter for brain health? It stimulates that neuroplasticity, right? The brain's ability to form new neural connections and pathways. And this helps maintain and even improve cognitive function as we age. It builds cognitive reserve. Regular mental challenges which allow the brain to better cope with age-related changes and resist damage from conditions like Alzheimer's disease. It improves memory, focus, and problem solving. So, activities that require learning, attention, creativity, focus, these enhance memory, executive functioning, and processing speed. They also reduce the risk of cognitive decline and dementia. So some examples of brain challenges, puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, crossword puzzles, learning a new language. They say learning new things, a new language, a new skill is a great way of stimulating the brain. Learning a musical instrument, because that involves the body and the brain and can increase the corpus callosum, that the part of the brain that connects the hemispheres of the brain when you learn musical instruments, learning dance, boxing moves, right? Those are exercise, but also if you're learning dance steps, you're learning something new. So you're moving your body, you're getting those aerobic benefits, and you're stimulating the brain in different ways. Learning a new skill like cooking or art, right? Creative expression, all of those stimulate the brain in lots of positive ways. Music is wonderful for the brain. Um, so thinking about how can mind challenges and or learning new things benefit you? What activities sound like a fun challenge for you? Is there a new skill that you're interested in or want to learn? And what topics interest you? So, even reading, learning about history, learning about those things, all of that is really wonderful. Take a class at a community center or an online program, add a puzzle or brain teaser into your daily routine, play strategy games with others, or practice one new skill. Um, there are Duolingo, there are a lot of different apps for learning languages, if that's something you're interested in, that are free. So there are lots of different ways to get involved and stimulate your brain. Next is smoking. We know that smoking has a negative impact on overall health and can accelerate cognitive decline. So, smoking speeds up age-related memory loss and impairs attention, learning, and decision making. And smokers are more than 30% more likely to develop dementia than non-smokers. Smoking can reduce brain volume. It's linked to loss of gray matter and brain shrinkage, especially in the areas of the brain tied to memory and executive function. It increases the risk of stroke and makes the blood more likely to clot, increasing stroke risk by up to 6 times. And strokes can permanently cause brain damage and lead to vascular dementia. It also triggers neuroinflammation and can cause inflammation in the brain cells, which may contribute to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis. So, quitting smoking can reduce the risk of dementia and stroke. It can improve cognitive function. So even after quitting, people often experience improvements in memory, attention, and executive functioning. Some damage to the brain's cortex caused by smoking may even be reversible over time. It lowers inflammation and oxidative stress, and it boosts the oxygen supply to the brain. So quitting smoking is very beneficial, can also enhance mood and sleep, as nicotine disrupts sleep and increases anxiety. So some things to think about if you are a smoker. How can staying smoke-free benefit you? What resources exist in the community to help? And we have the local New York Quits line. I think there are different ones in different states, but 866 New York Quits can provide support. talking with your doctor or healthcare professional, finding personal strategies. We know that this is not easy. So finding something that works right for you is really important. And finding accountability partners can be really beneficial as well. So getting sleep. Quality sleep is essential for health and well-being. And, while sleep is individual, the recommendation is aiming for about 7 to 9 hours a night. And sleep impacts brain health by supporting the ability to regulate blood pressure and blood sugar. During sleep, especially deep REM sleep stages, the brain processes and stores new information, and this strengthens memory and improves learning capacity. Brain detox via the glymphatic system. The brain activates, sleep activates the brain's cleaning system, which clears out waste products like beta amyloid, a protein linked to Alzheimer's disease. So poor sleep can disrupt this process, increasing the risk of neurodegenerative conditions. Sleep increases mood and cognitive performance. Sleep deprivation impairs attention, decision making, and emotional regulation. And chronic poor sleep is linked to increased risk of depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. So some tips for a good sleep: sticking to a regular sleep schedule. And sometimes this is known as sleep hygiene. So going to bed and waking up at a similar time every day, creating a calming bedtime routine, right? Reading, meditation, a warm bath, something that can help you put away the phone, put away distractions, the screens, and relax before sleep. Optimizing your sleep environment. Again, this is very individual, but for many people, maintaining a cool, dark, and quiet environment can promote sleep. Using comfortable bedding and supportive mattresses, avoiding screens and bright lights before bed. There are studies that have shown that blue light from phones can disrupt melatonin production. And avoiding sleep disruptors like caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and screens in the evening can be helpful as well. Getting daylight exposure during the day, exercising, walking, and reducing naps during the day, those can all help with regular sleep as well. So our reflection questions: how can quality sleep benefit me? What is your ideal sleep environment? And what is your current sleep routine? Is there anything that you can add to that, or any ways to minimize disruptions? Talk to your doctor about any sleep issues or problems, avoiding those sleep disruptors that we talked about, developing a calming routine, and staying active during the day can all help with better sleep. Managing stress. Oh, goodness. Life is very stressful. Stress, anxiety, and depression negatively impact brain health. So good mental health supports good overall health. And science says that managing stress protects memory and cognitive functioning, as chronic stress disrupts the brain's ability to process and store information, especially in areas like the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, which are essential for memory and decision making. Stress also, managing stress can help reduce inflammation and neurodegeneration. Stress triggers inflammation in the brain, which is linked to increase of Alzheimer's disease, depression, and stroke. So managing stress helps reduce this inflammation and supports long-term brain resilience. It also supports emotional regulation, motivation, and again, resilience. Chronic stress affects the brain's reward system, reducing pleasure and motivation and increasing the risk of isolation and further stress. So, healthy stress management strengthens neurocircuits involved in emotional control and self regulation. So, some self care techniques, some stress management, right? And again, we fully want to acknowledge for care partners out there that this is incredibly difficult. It's something that we talk about a lot in our support groups. What are some self care techniques, even with very little time? What are some things that can be done? Right? So mindfulness practices, meditation, faith practices, deep breaths, right? Prayer, all of those things can be helpful. Taking breaks for yourself, short breaks, longer breaks, respite time if possible. Journaling and gratitude practices have shown to increase positive feelings, reduce stress, and of course, seeking support when needed. Um, Seeking support groups, professional health, mental health support, talking to your doctor if you're noticing signs of anxiety or depression that are impacting your daily life or functioning or feelings of overwhelm. Don't keep that to yourself. There are people here. We have a helpline here at CaringKind. You can call, have a consultation with one of our navigators, share your story, what you're going through. There are people who can provide support. So don't keep it to yourself. Connect with others and ask for help. If the stress is getting very difficult for you, which is very common. You're not alone. And so again, thinking about how can stress management and care for your mental health benefit you, and even how can it benefit the person that you're caring for, right? There are a lot of different sayings and phrases, but one of them, you can't give from an empty well, right? So how are you filling up your own well so you can give to others, so you can be there for the people that you're caring for? Because you can't care for them if you're not well. Are there signs of stress, anxiety, or depression that you're noticing? How do you care for yourself now? And celebrating the things you're doing to care for yourself, right? A lot of times people will take an action or do something and then it starts to become routine and they forget to really celebrate. Yes, I took a half-hour walk today and I did my 10-minute meditation. And I called my best friend and had a 5-minute call, right? Taking in and celebrating those things that you are doing, recognizing, yes, I put in more leafy greens. I had kale today. Go me, right? Celebrating those things is so important. Talking with your doctor about any signs of stress, starting the day with something that brings comfort or joy, even a few things just at the very start of the morning, finding ways to take short breaks, tea break, a coffee break, and seeking that support when needed. So a few other considerations, and we're going to go until 2:15 today, so we will have some time for questions in a moment, but just a couple of other considerations to note, right? And then grounding this in science. So alcohol. Science says that alcohol can negatively affect the brain, and the recommendation for brain health is to limit or abstain from alcohol use. Alcohol negatively affects the brain by interfering with communication pathways, which can impair judgment, memory, and coordination. So heavy long-term use can lead to brain shrinkage, neuron damage, and conditions like Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome from a thiamine deficiency. And even moderate drinking may be linked to shrinking in cognitive areas. So short-term effects can include slow reactions, mood swings, and confusion, and long-term effects can include significant behavioral and cognitive changes. So again, from the science perspective, um, limiting or abstaining from alcohol is good for brain health. Other considerations, a lot of people ask, are there vitamin and mineral supplements I can take? There are a lot of ads talking about this supplement or that supplement. And again, grounding in science, we know that no major agency endorses general vitamin or supplement recommendations for dementia prevention. So check with your doctor for personalized recommendations. So the World Health Organization, Alzheimer's Association, US Preventative Services Task Force, American Geriatric Society, none of them endorse supplements or criteria for dementia prevention. So again, talking to your doctor, it may be that for you, certain vitamins are beneficial, right? And if you find your friend is taking something, bring it up with your doctor. Say, my friend's taking this and they said it was really helpful. What do you think? Would that be something I could try or should I not? Right? Because every body is different. Everybody's physical makeup, your blood tests will show if you have certain vitamin deficiencies or excesses in certain vitamins, because excesses in vitamins can also be damaging to your health, right? So you don't just want to start taking things without really checking with your doctor and knowing what is good for you and your body. Healthy habits support well-being. So we just want to mention here one really wonderful dementia advocate. Richard Taylor was a psychologist who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's type dementia at age 61. He started writing short essays for himself to make sense of what he was experiencing. He began online chat rooms, which grew into an international network, and he became a champion for individuals with early stage Alzheimer's, speaking regularly throughout the United States and co-founding the Dementia Advocacy and Support Network International. And he passed away a few years ago, actually from cancer. But Richard is an example of one of the many who are breaking stigma and finding ways to live fully with dementia. And he really saw dementia as a cognitive disability. He said, I'm not dying from a chronic disease, I'm living with a chronic cognitive disability. So developments in research and treatments are showing promise in slowing progression and symptom development of dementia, and these modifiable risk factors that we talked about today are wonderful. Even for people with a dementia diagnosis, these tips and modifications may slow symptom progression and can promote optimal well-being while living with a diagnosis. We have some brain health resources for you here, and we're going to send this in an email to you, the PDF, and I think Rochelle is also going to put it in the chat for you as well.